wanted to review what an agreement looks like, whether it's a private office agreement or different types of agreements. So we'll actually be going through that now. So if I actually hit the edit button on the license, as you see, the license status is still in draft, what we just created. So right before we went to lunch, we had walked through the entire license agreement. We've went in and put all of our information into the system, such as their term start and end date, if you wanted to auto renew the agreement, what type of pricing for their products that they're doing, if any discounts are associated, and how to add additional products onto that initial invoice. Now, when you go through all of this information and you're satisfied that you put all of the information correctly into the system, the next step, again, is to make sure, number one, you're using the correct license template. So this is going to be your memberships agreements or your private office agreements with your terms and conditions on it. And that's what you want to choose depending on which products they're purchasing. So the next step is to actually send this proposal or agreement out to the customer. So in order to do that, on the right-hand side, you'll see this preview license blue button. If I click into that, what will happen is the system will go ahead and pull all of this information into the template. So you can see here the membership template is, you have your terms and conditions laid out. So again, after a call, we'll ask each location to go ahead and send us all of their agreements, and we'll get these into the system for you. But as you start to scroll down, you'll actually see these merge fields. So the system will automatically pull first name, last name, address, email address. You guys will click in here if you know the website and it's not something that we currently have in the system. You can add it at the time of, or their job title. Again, these items will pull through if you've filled them out prior. Otherwise, you can just click in and update anything you need to that way. And you can see all of the fields. Now, the next step would actually be to decide if you need to make any changes, or if you're ready and you're happy with everything that's here, you can go ahead and do one of two things. The first thing is going to be the e-sign, if that's an option for you guys. At the moment, we didn't activate it yet. I am waiting to get feedback, but we do want it as something that's active and in the system for you guys, so you can choose to do that. What you would do is hit this e-sign button, and it will send out electronically for a signature through the system. The next step, if you didn't want to use our integration, you do have the option to either print this out as is, and you can leave it in their mailbox, or they can swing by and sign it, or you have the option to hit the email button. If I hit the email button, again, I could create a template in the system, which will allow you guys to use that kind of same template to send out to everybody when you're sending a proposal. And what it'll do is it'll create, again, you can search for that template, or you can write a handwritten kind of self-sufficient note here by simply clicking in and just saying, "Hi, John, thank you so much for your interest in Venture X. Please see the attached proposal." Now you can see attached here is going to be this particular proposal with all of the fields that you filled out that need to be in that agreement. Then you can hit the send button, and it'll email this non-signable, not electronic sign, sorry guys, agreement to the customer. They'll have to then either put it into PDF signer or print it, or however they want to manage it on their end, and then send it back to you. So there's multiple ways that we can actually send this to the customer. Again, you'll see an e-sign version here that will automatically send it out for electronic signature. Once that happens and it's signed by both parties, It'll actually get stored under the member account under notes and attachments, so you guys don't have to do anything. The customers will receive a copy and you guys will have a copy under their account automatically. If you do it manually, when you receive it back, you should go ahead and either scan it or just upload it directly into the notes and attachments section of their account as well, so you have it for future need. You also will see that the other agreements for that location can be here too. So I can go ahead and click on membership proposal if I want to view that instead of the dedicated desk proposal. So you can see that it's looking a little different. So you can really choose which proposal or membership agreement that you want to pull information through to send to the customer. What's going to prompt that really is what you choose. I'm just going to close out of here because once I send it, I can just close it. It's really going to be what you choose under the template here is what's going to show on the next screen to send out to the customer. So again, depending on what they're purchasing is the template that you want to choose, and then it'll pull all of the information necessary over. We always ask that you just spot check it first before you send it to the customer to make sure you don't have to update any information prior that might not have pulled over because somebody didn't enter that information into the system. Now, once you have a signed agreement by both parties, the next step is really going to be to activate your agreement. When I say activate agreement, what I'm going to do is hit this activate button, and we're going to make this an active, immediate, chargeable agreement now. So now those billing cycles are going to start for this customer, and based on the initial invoice that's raised and or when they're due to be charged next in the bill run, this customer will now pull through. While it's in draft or waiting signature, the license won't be activated. It's something that you guys have to do yourself. Again, when you have a signed agreement by both parties, usually that's the trigger for you to go ahead and activate it because now it's been agreed upon by both customers at what you laid forth for them. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to hit the activate button, and it's going to bring me to another screen with options that I can fill out to move forward with activating the agreement. You will see a financial data section. Again, this is if you wanted to actually collect their data, their bank information. 99% of the time, again, your customers will be paying through the member portal or through a manual payment update, which I'll show you in a moment. So you won't really need to collect this information. It's there for most of our international customers that do use the direct deposit or direct debit, not through the member portal. Now, payment methods, this is important if you're actually going to be exporting to QuickBooks or some sort of financial software. Usually QuickBooks, you have a payment term and type in there. The term could be net 30 or immediate payment, and the type could be this customer is usually paying by credit card, so I'm going to go ahead and save that as their payment type for a majority of their payment methods. It doesn't mean that the system is going to stop them from using another form of payment. It's just a general overview of what they typically tend to pay or what you'll accept from this client. The invoice method section is going to be just that. If you created a member account previously and they have that invoice email section filled out, as discussed, that will automatically populate here. If for some reason that invoice email section wasn't filled out, or this customer was a prospect account because you didn't put that information in, you would want to update that to here so the system knows who the invoice is going to go to once it's approved and sent out. So I'm going to make sure that it says I'm going to email my invoices because that's how the customers are going to get it. And this too is going to be the billing contact email address. Again, if I put it under the account, the prospect account or the member account, it'll automatically show here. But if I didn't, and I didn't go in and do my homework and put that information in there, I can type it in this way so the system knows who to send the invoice to. You also have a CCC and a BCC area as well. Then you have the option to produce a separate rent and service invoice. When we say rent or service, rent is usually associated with a dedicated space, and then your services or any kind of add-ons or memberships. You can produce a separate prorated invoice if you want to send them something separate for their first month prorated invoice. Or you can also separate the deposit or last month's rent invoice. It's just an option in case your customers want to receive them separately, that the system will break them out for you for the initial invoice only. Again, this is really something that's up to you. We have it turned off to choose any of them for now, because we want to leave it up to you to choose that if you need it. More than likely, it's not something that's going to be needed at all times. The only section that's mandatory in order to activate the agreement on here is going to be your movement type. Really, it's just going to be a way to describe how this client is associating with this agreement. So they could be a move-in new client. For you guys, any client that has not been in our system and before is really going to be a move-in new client. You can have that they're a move out when you're terminating, a downgrade and upgrade. Again, we can update these to say something different. If we're missing one, just let us know. And then finally, you have the option to preview the initial invoice. If you have charges to raise on your first invoice when you're activating the agreement, you more than likely want to preview the invoice immediately so you can send it out to customers so they can remit payment. If I uncheck this button, it will still create that initial invoice upon activation. However, under invoicing, it'll just sit in draft invoices. It won't show it to me immediately. I can go in draft invoices and manage it at any time. But more than likely, I'm going to raise the initial invoice at the time of activation. And I'll show you what it looks like in draft invoicing as well. So I'm going to hit the Activate License button. This is what's going to make, again, this agreement active in the system once it's been signed by both parties and approved. I'm going to see a pop-up that says your license has been activated. It's going to be producing my invoice now. And here's my invoice template now. So I can scroll through. I can see the company's information as well as VentureX information. For the location, the invoice number says 2BA. Again, until I approve this invoice, meaning it's an active charge in the system, it's going to have that draft watermark. So it's not going to know what the invoice number is yet or the invoice date until I populate that information into here. You can see that there's no balance forward for this customer. I'm currently asking this total for the amount of the invoice. I can see all of this information, and then I scroll down and I have my broken down charges. Now, this is our standard invoice that is provided with the system. If you have something you guys use that you like better, again, you can submit it and we can create it in the system for you. I believe at the moment, everybody has said that they're okay with this layout. They might just want to show discounts, which you don't see here. So again, that's something that you guys can request or let us know and we can update that for you. Now, again, when the invoice is in draft form, that means that it's not an active charge under your accounts receivable or their balance. The system is still allowing you to make changes and check out everything before you send it to the customer. Because once you activate an invoice, we tell you never to delete it. And the reason for that is if you delete an invoice in the system, it's not going to delete the charge. It's just going to delete the invoice itself, the paper trail. So it's going to unbalance your account receivable. Usually if you overcharge a customer for any reason, the idea or best practice is to create a credit note within the system, which will then further allow you to then balance out the overcharge and credit them back the amount of money that you owe them, whether you've collected payment or not collected payment yet. If I close this out because I see something wrong that I need to update within this invoice, what I can do is hit close. I'm not going to make this active yet. I'm actually going to go into invoices and draft invoices. And I can see this particular invoice that I didn't send to the customer or activate yet. So if I hit this edit button, the system will now allow me to make changes to the invoice before I approve it and send it to the customer. So I can come in here and click these X button, which will remove this line item before sending it to the customer, or I can click the edit pencil, which will allow me to update the list price, change the discount, update the tax, whatever I need to at the moment. So again, this is a way where you can easily come in and edit the invoice itself before you approve it and send it to the customer. The whole point in doing this is to allow you to check everything that you're doing prior to avoid having to create those credit notes or worry about overcharging a customer, all of those maybes that you could possibly do. We like to have that extra check for you guys so you're not overcharging a customer or just giving you an extra option to check your work. So if I'm happy with the changes I made, I'm going to hit preview invoice again. And this is going to take me back to the original screen where I can view the invoice and approve it to send it to the customer. So if I come in here, I'm going to put the due date as immediately because this is a new client moving in and they need to pay before they move into the space. And then I can put today's date. If you're doing this for a bill run, you'll have probably 60 plus or however many clients you have in your space. You'll be running invoices all at the same time and you can approve them and send them all at the same time too. So you won't have to do this individually for all of them on your monthly bill run. This is just individual for your current client at the moment. So once I put in this information, the invoice due date and the date, you can see that that'll be updated here. And my next step is then to approve the invoice because it's been correct. So once I approve the invoice, as I scroll down, you'll notice the draft watermark is gone. When I go to accounts receivable, which we'll show now, you'll be able to see that this customer now has a balance on their account that's owed. And I can hit the email button to automatically send this out to the customer. It's just going to be sent with a standard invoice email template. The attachment is going to be here for the invoice and it's going to show that to that I entered so it knows exactly who to go to. I can select another template if I created one for this case that's not the standard one, hit the send button and off it goes to your client. Now under member accounts, you'll see that that email has been sent to them. It records everything and keeps going so you have constant record of all of your communications within the system. Now keep in mind as you're creating invoices, in order for the customer to see these invoices on the member portal, they have to be either emailed or printed out of the system. The system needs to register that you've sent or tried to give this invoice to the client. It doesn't want to allow them to view it on the member portal if you haven't sent it to them previously and let them know that there is something in there. So again, in order for the client to log into the member portal, which we'll go over shortly, you want to either email and or print this out of the system. That's kind of the trigger to let the system know that it can be seen now on the member portal. When I close out of this invoice, currently I no longer have any draft invoices because I've approved this one and sent it to the client. If I now go under invoicing and invoices, that invoice can be seen here. So I can see all of the invoices that I've raised. I can go through them, I can view them, and it's just going to give me exactly what the customer sees on their end. Now